Welcome in, latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. Go by SEC Mike on the Twitters, and there he is, our great friend, Stephen Lassan, senior editor over at Athlon Sports. Stephen, how are you?
Mike, I'm doing great. Isn't it great to have college football back? Like week 0 was the appetizer. We got week 1 in. Man, it was great to have some games and be able to react to them with the hardest working man in the SEC Mike.
Well, I appreciate that, Stephen, and I also appreciate our friends over at MyBookie. Come on, if you ain't already going over to MyBookie, Stephen, this is the best deal, I think, in podcasting right now. MyBookie.ag is the website. Put in that promo code SEC when you put in an initial deposit, and they are guaranteeing your first wager up to $500. So what does that mean? That means, like, let's say you want to log in right now over at MyBookie with that promo code SEC. Throw $500 on North Carolina and Papal Bill Belichick to beat TCU. If you get it wrong, if you use that promo code, they'll give you your $500 right back and you can stay in the game. Or if you win it, if Papal knows what he's doing in college football, you can cash out, keep your money. So that's about as good as a deal as you're going to get in podcasting. And the way I pick these games, Stephen, the smartest thing you could do is go over there, sign up for MyBookie, use that promo code SEC, and just fade all my picks, and you're going to be living rich in about a month.
What was your record in week 1? Did you did you figure it up, or are you just like you coach speak? You just moved on to week 2.
Well, thanks to our buddy Liquid, he is helping us with the picks this year, Stephen. I'm in dead last. You and cousin JR are tied. And then Shane is running away with the thing. I think he only got one game wrong, and I think it was Alabama. No, he got Texas, of course, wrong. So we'll hit on that. But yeah, we don't even compete with Shane when it comes to the pick'ems.
Mike, this is the point of the podcast where we bring up the coach speak. We're going to get the film room. We're going to make some adjustments for week 2. We're going to see a better effort. We're not going to have any loafs like you, Alabama defense. So, but yeah, Mike, our friends at MyBookie, the best part about that is, and I kind of, it's like one of those things before halftime, you got a free shot at the end zone. Take it. See what happens, right? You score, not it goes out of the back of the end zone. So,
right. Don't be like Ty Simpson. If it's there to take it, take it. Don't throw it out of bounds. But you know who never screws up? Never.
Good chance to make a Nico joke there, Mike.
I've moved on. I have moved on to troll at Ty Simpson, but I'll never troll JR.
Legend, cousin JR has done it again.
Thank you, JR. He gifted a membership to Flying Hawaiian. Flying Hawaiian, welcome to
the family.
Yeah, thanks to the legend, JR. We appreciate you, buddy. And we also got a gifted membership, Stephen, from Steven Up, our other favorite, Stephen. We got 2 great Stevens.
Always showing up for them boys in Tuscaloosa. It's Steven Up. Roll Tide.
Shout out Steven Up. He gifted the Spaceman. Spaceman, welcome to
the family.
Yeah. And one more. Shout out Horns Down Dave. What a name.
That's great.
That's a great Dave. Horns Down Dave. He gifted a membership to Chase Burrell. Chase, welcome to
the family.
Yeah. And I see our awesome sponsor also in the comments. Shout out Tennessee Legends, Evening Cousins. Don't forget, podcast is also brought to you by Tennessee Legend, the best damn distillery there is. I got my Tennessee Legends right here. And if you don't have it at your local package store, liquor store, ABC store, whatever you want to call it, you go in there and tell them, get you some Tennessee Legends. Get like us over at that SEC podcast. The only thing getting these Alabama and Texas fans through another day is Tennessee Legend whiskey. Stephen, how about it? What was the major takeaways you had from Saturday's action? And I can't even believe that we're nearly 5 minutes into this thing, and you have not apologized for your Arch Manning slander. Well, it's not really, I guess it is slander, but you slandered us with the praise you gave him.
I guess I do need to start with an apology, but I also think there's a lot to unpack with this game. How do you want to get into this? Do you want to jump right into panic meter, or do you want to just big picture takeaway here?
Let's just go, first of all, just your takeaways from that game, and we'll get to the panic meter after we do a full rewind of our last kind of look at week one of the college football season. But I mean, I'm seeing it in the comments, and this is a question that I have as well, Stephen. Was this just two elite defenses that maybe the offenses just couldn't have success, or are these two offenses horribly overrated? What's your thoughts as Texas goes down 14-7?
Mike, I think you and I discussed this on the prediction show, and I think it still holds true. This game was a battle of two great defenses. This might be the number one and number two defense in college football. Now, that's not to excuse some of the things we saw from the quarterback play at times in this game, but these two teams are loaded on defense. And I did not believe in the Matt Patricia hire for Ohio State. He did a great job on Saturday. There was a lot of stuff that he was throwing at Texas. I will also be honest, I was a little disappointed, a little surprised that Steve Sarkisian didn't have more answers, a better game plan, whatever you want to put it. But I think we could look back in December or January and look at this game and say, this was kind of the floor for both teams. Both of these teams lost key pieces from last year. They have a long way they can go. There's still a lot of talent on these rosters. We know both these defenses are good. I think these two quarterbacks, these two offenses, they are going to be fine going forward. There's a lot to work on. Still test certainly for Texas and Ohio State coming up. But I think these two teams have a lot of room to grow. And I think when we start thinking about national championship conversation, this was something that I kept coming back to, is it felt like a team like Clemson was kind of tapped out. Like, you knew what you were going to get come into the year. That's probably the team they're going to be in January. I felt like for Texas, I think it's true for Georgia. I think it's also true for LSU. Those teams still have ways they can go in terms of development. So I think this was a case of two great defenses squaring off in the first game of the year in one of the toughest environments to play. And that's why I'm not as alarmed as some people are about Texas.
Well, speaking of good defense, Stephen, we got to give them credit where credit's due, because LSU's not had a good defense for a while, but they certainly looked good against Clemson on the road Saturday night, held Clemson to slightly over a yard per rush attempt, completely dominated the ground game, 108 to 31 here. And Garrett Nussmeier, he looked like the real quarterback in this football game. And, he wasn't even as sharp as I think he could possibly get, yet they didn't really need him to be. I thought past the first quarter, LSU dominated the Tigers of Clemson. What was your thoughts on this one?
Mike, I think you are 100% right. I think there was a feeling that I had like in the first half of watching these two teams say LSU, whatever the score was at that point, I just said, man, LSU is the better team. And then, of course, there was that play where it should have been a catch and it was ruled not a catch. But I was like, oh, no, here we go again for LSU. But I think if we take a step back and look, 17-10 is not indicative of how good LSU played in this game or how they dominated, or frankly, how much better I thought they were than Clemson. We came into this game talking about Clemson's defense, Clemson's defensive line. Let's get some respect to LSU's defense. I mean, I bought up some stock this offseason in LSU's defense. I need to buy up some more, because holding a good Clemson offense to 261 yards, completely shut down the run game. They also got some pressure on Cade Klubnik. Clemson's defense got the credit coming in. It's LSU's defense that deserves it coming out. Also, when we talk about room to grow, LSU's offensive line has room to improve here. And if you're telling me Garrett Nussmeier just went on the road to Clemson, threw for 230 yards, the offense put up 354 total yards of offense, that is a good day and a lot of room for this offense to only get better from here.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, but didn't you have LSU as a playoff team in the magazine?
I did. Yeah. I let somebody influence my opinion on somebody else, but I believe in LSU as a playoff team. And if Ohio State had the most impressive win this weekend, LSU had the second most impressive win in my opinion.
Well, I'm glad I didn't talk you off that ledge, because I certainly tried, but one I did, I think, talk you off of, and I was dead wrong again, Stephen. How about the other Tigers, Auburn Tigers, going on the road, beating Baylor 38-24. Man, was this an impressive showing by Jackson Arnold, Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze this is like a hole-in-one, wasn't it? So shout out Jackson Arnold. He leads the SEC in rushing. Couldn't be happier for that guy. And, they may have just changed the narrative there on the Plains, Stephen. I think this is the best win of the Hugh Freeze era to date. What's your thoughts?
I think so. Also, what a great weekend if you're Auburn when you just go on the road and get a big win over Baylor and you look and see what's happening with Alabama right now. I mean, completely different narratives. Like, and it was reversed just 2 weeks ago. So just the fact that Auburn goes on the road and beats a Big 12 team that could win the conference this year by 14 points. And they didn't just win by 14 points. They smacked them in the trenches. And you saw this with the pass rush. Keldrick Falk and those guys were getting after Sawyer Robertson. And then the way they ran the ball over 300 yards, Jackson Arnold leading the way. I would like to see more out of the passing game. And I thought at times they tried to make it a little too hard, like just run the ball and get out of there with the win, quit playing around. It doesn't matter. They just won by 14, and we keep talking about room to grow. If there's another kind of iteration of Jackson Arnold and developing the passing game here, that's only another good sign for Auburn. So great win, room they can get better. And I mean, as far as narratives go, there's no more like, at least for right now, Hugh Freeze on the hot seat. It's all on the other side with Alabama.
Right. And we'll have a lot to say about Alabama when it comes to the panic meter, but we got to talk about this whooping. The team I thought was going to conquer the SEC, and hey, Stephen, they're still undefeated in conference play,
Right.
but they're not undefeated anymore because Florida State put a whooping on Alabama, 31-17. Kalen DeBoer seemingly has no answers. Defense looks sloppy. Defense was loafing. They look slow. They look old. Meanwhile, Florida State, Gus Malzahn, the Gus bus, they did whatever they wanted to poor Alabama. It's funny, Stephen. I keep seeing here people say, "Oh, I think the dynasty's dead." Dynasty's been dead for about 5 years, people. I don't know where you've been, but I mean, it's tattered and in shambles, and this doesn't even look like one of the better teams in this conference. And quite frankly, I don't even know if they're the best team in their state anymore.
Also, how, like, if you're LSU, don't you feel better about going to Tuscaloosa later in the season based upon that? Like, if I'm LSU, like, things are setting up for a pretty special season. But I think what's interesting about Alabama and Florida State, it's almost like old school versus new school. Florida State had so many new players. And Castellanos is a transfer. Gus Malzahn had a new defensive coordinator. And the argument for Alabama was continuity. It was all the pieces coming back. They were motivated after last season. Thomas Castellanos, he talked the talk this offseason, and he backed it up on Saturday. And I think that's what's alarming to me about this Alabama team is you bring back pretty much everybody. You brought in Ryan Grubb as offensive coordinator, all that continuity, and they got completely outplayed by a Florida State team with all those new faces. And it's not just getting outplayed. Like, if they had lost like on some big plays or maybe a turnover, like you could kind of go, okay. They just got pushed around by a Florida State team that couldn't push anybody around in the ACC last year. So, I mean, Mike Norvell and the staff did a great job of taking all these transfers and getting them ready and transforming this team in one offseason. And to see some of the things you saw in the game of all the motivational things. I mean, Alabama's defense should have been motivated to stop Thomas Castellanos. Too much loafing, too many effort concerns. When was the last time you've heard that out of an Alabama team, other than the last
season?
Yeah, right. And before that, you'd have to go back to like 2006 or so. I mean, there's a very concerning trend line here of underachieving in road games under Kalen DeBoer as a double-digit favorite. And it's not just that. You could look at the whole program here and say they are underachieving. I thought I saw somebody bring this up Saturday during the game is Kalen DeBoer didn't have a hard time getting his guys motivated at Washington. Like, you didn't see this stuff on tape. What's the disconnect here? Why is there such a disconnect right now to see this happening compared to what happened at Washington?
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question, Stephen. Maybe Kalen DeBoer, maybe he can't get through to the elite of the elite athletes. But he could get through to guys that are not getting the press clippings, that don't have national television ads, that didn't come down there to play for Nick Saban. I don't know, but they got to get that solved, and they better get it solved in a hurry. Otherwise, I don't care what his buyout is. He's not going to be there much longer. But hey, shout out. SL Jackson gave us $10, Steven. He wants to talk about them Vols, and why wouldn't he? Because Tennessee opened up can of whoop ass on old Syracuse 45-26. Cannot wait to hear Steven sing the praises of them Vols. Go Vols, says SL Jackson. What's your thoughts, Steven, when Tennessee made relatively quick work of old Syracuse?
They did. First of all, isn't Joey Aguilar fun? I tried to tell you guys, man, there is not a deep pass that guy is not afraid to throw, and it is fun to watch. And I think the interesting thing is, I was watching UCLA and Utah play later on during the day, and I saw Nico miss a couple of deep passes, and I thought about the game earlier and was like, Joey Aguilar is going to hit on more of these than Nico did last year. And I think give a lot of credit to Josh Heupel, because we talk about like new pieces and trying to get all these players ready for week one after being in the portal. Tennessee had a quarterback who just got there in the summer. They have a new three-headed monster at running back. They replacing, Dylan Sampson, one of the best players in the country last year. There were a lot of new faces that showed out for Tennessee on Saturday. And I think to go back to our discussion about like which teams have room to grow, give Joey Aguilar a couple more weeks. Like they know what he can do now. I think Tennessee's got a lot of room to grow and to be optimistic going forward. I'm thinking about what I saw out of Alabama on Saturday. I'd feel optimistic about Tennessee potentially winning that game after maybe giving them a loss in the preseason. So I don't want to get too far down the road here because Syracuse defense is bad, but man, there was a lot of things to get excited about with the fit of Joey Aguilar in this offense in the offseason, and things we saw in week one, I think kind of confirmed where this could go.
Mm-hmm. Well, shout out cousin Bob, Stephen Bob Witten. He gave us $20. He says, OU is for real. Ready for Michigan. Thieves. I agree on that. Your 82-year-old cousin. So we're going to preview the Oklahoma game, Oklahoma-Michigan game, of course, here in a little bit. But do you have any takeaways from the Illinois State win? John Mateer looked like $1 million. He currently leads the SEC in passing yards with 392. But the problem, and maybe, I think they were just keeping it vanilla. But the problem, perhaps, they lost the rushing edge to Illinois State. Couldn't really run the ball that well. But again, I don't know if that's the end-all, be-all. But that's a huge red flag for me with Michigan coming to town.
I think it's a concern, especially with, like you said, Michigan, and Michigan's probably biggest strength is going to be its edge at the line of scrimmage. Like this team is built inside out. But I'm not that worried about this for Oklahoma because of the opponent and kind of where I think the matchup fell. You go into a season not wanting to show too much for the Michigan game. You have to do enough to beat Illinois State. You have to do enough to knock the rust off. But I'm not that worried. I mean, Jaden Ott had one carry. Oklahoma had some offensive linemen that were banged up. I think all those things tell me there's a lot of meat on the bone that Oklahoma can still go forward and be able to establish the run and win at the offensive line. I thought, as far as a big picture takeaway, Mateer was as good as advertised. Much like Joey Aguilar, he is fun to watch. There were some big plays. It was great to see Keontez Lewis have a big day with Deion Burks. Like getting the receivers involved downfield was missing last year in this offense. So I thought schematically, what we saw the passing game, all of those were good signs. The question is like, how much were they holding back and kind of the run game improvement? And I think we'll see some this week against Michigan. I'm not too worried about Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not also worried, Stephen, about VFL Smokey. VFL just gifted a membership to JS Productions. JS, welcome to
the family.
Yeah, we appreciate you, VFL Smokey, as well as Matthew B. Dweller. Matthew B. Dweller, welcome to
the family.
Yeah. How about Junior? He just gave us $10, Stephen. Will DJ Lagway and Jaden Ball save Napier from himself on offense? Well, heck, he didn't have to this week because they won 55-0 against Long Island. But I know that was a difficult game to find on the tube. You had to go to the ESPN Plus to get access to this one. But any takeaways, Stephen? DJ Lagway, they didn't really need him that much. He but he only threw like 15 passes, but 3 of them were touchdowns and 83% completion. Looked like $1 million. They rolled on, and we'll talk about this South Florida here in a minute, but that could be a good game this weekend.
Yeah, South Florida with a big win over Boise State on Thursday night. That was a great win for Alex Golesh, maybe future SEC head coach Alex Golesh. I think with Long Island and Florida, Mike, it's hard to read too much into this. Long Island is really bad. And, I think maybe the takeaway from this is it was good to see DJ Lagway out there and knocking the rust off. 15 of 18, 120 yards, 3 touchdowns. Not a huge 400-yard passing day like we saw last season early in the year. But I think it's just important for him, given the injuries, given the offseason uncertainty, to be out there and looking sharp. And you also saw, was it Vernell Brown with a big catch. There was a lot of talent that popped for Florida in that game. Don't love the 11 tackles for a loss. Perhaps that's just a one-game blip. I'm kind of thinking Florida's offensive line is going to be fine here. But I think the bottom line is Florida took care of business. Nobody got hurt. And maybe to his point on the question is, Lagway, Baugh, Eugene Wilson, Brown, others, like there's a lot of weapons on this offense. And so I am looking forward to see what happens this week against a better opponent. But I'm already thinking about the LSU Florida game in week 3 and getting fired up for that one.
Well, one thing that'll make it better, Stephen. Shout out Mediocre Musician. He says, DeBoer is hop garbage, and I need some of that Tennessee Legend, Low Tide. Maybe Tennessee Legend can hook you up, Mediocre Musician. We could all use it if we got to watch Alabama play to the level they did once again this season. That was rough. But anyone else stand out, Stephen, week 1? There's so many. How about South Carolina? Any takeaways from that? I thought the defense looked good. Sellers looked like $1 million at times, but what was your read on it?
Yeah, I think what's funny is we talk about the last dance with Ole Miss last year, and as a '90s Bulls fan, I think about the big 3: Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman. And in that game, it was Sellers, Dylan Stewart, and Nick Harbor. South Carolina has 3 of the most physically gifted players in college football, and they are fun to watch each week. And so it was great to see Nick Harbor, after missing that catch, come back and catch a touchdown. You had Dylan Stewart just causing all kinds of havoc for Virginia Tech's tackles. It's kind of comical to watch some of those guys try to block him. And Sellers was great too. I think you'd like to see a little bit more consistency at times. The big play kind of skewed the stats. And the first drive, the big play was great. Maybe see a little bit more in the middle. But I thought, as far as like good debuts, like Mike Shula getting the ball to the tight ends, some of the things they were doing with Sellers, they got some room to grow in the offensive line and rushing attack. But to go win by 13 points against I think a pretty solid Virginia Tech team is a good way for South Carolina to start the year.
Mm-hmm. How about A&M, Stephen? 42-24 over UTSA. This game was scary close early in the third quarter, and then A&M's defense settled down. But the fact it took them 2 quarters to get kind of locked in, they lost the rushing edge 203 to 108. Any takeaways from this one, just given the fact that A&M was a popular dark horse to potentially make the playoff, and obviously they're still in it. But what's your take on A&M after one game?
I think my takeaway is Marcel Reed, and it looks like a better quarterback, but also Kevin Concepcion and Mario Craver lived up to the hype. Concepcion with a great punt return. We talked all offseason about bringing back big plays in the passing game, and Concepcion and Craver both did that. I am a little bit, I guess maybe confused is the right word about the line of scrimmage. UTSA had 203 rushing yards. 75 of that came on the one rush. And for Texas A&M, they only had 23 rushing attempts. So there really wasn't a clear 40 carries to try and establish it, especially against a UTSA defense that had so many new pieces. It's a little surprising to see that. I think you could take a step back and say, 42-24, you got your passing game, some work, your transfer receiver showed out, you get Utah State this week. It's about building to the Notre Dame game. hard to worry about Texas A&M's offensive line at this point. We knew the rush defense was not great last year at times. That might be something we have to watch still going forward, given the losses that they had and how they performed last season.
Hey, we got a question. Shout out from Brandon Riley. He gave us $2, Steven. Thoughts on the Ole Miss running back room? Ole Miss whooped up on Georgia State 63-7. And of course, I was, as were many fans, they were interested to see Austin Simmons, who did have the 2 picks. One got tipped, but still a very impressive debut there as a starting quarterback. But what did you feel about the Ole Miss running back room? Lacey scored 3 touchdowns. Lane Kiffin loves to run the football down there in Oxford.
Mike, I think the takeaway that I had leaving that game for Ole Miss, full caveat, Georgia State is not very good. And also, they just added TJ Finley today. So his college career is still going on as he probably collects Social Security this season. Full caveat that Georgia State's not very good, but it felt like all the newcomers for Ole Miss stood out. And one that I wanted to see was Kawan Lacey. Love like the big plays from Kawan Lacey, Logan Diggs, the 42-yarder, the 51-yarder. This is, I think, Lacey and Diggs, like not superstar first team all SEC kind of guys, but I love the depth here, like the 1-2 punch you could get out of these guys to go with Austin Simmons. The offense is in very good shape for Ole Miss going forward, provided the offensive line holds up and provided this holds up against better competition. But I think if you were wanting, to see how these guys played in week 1, I think you had to leave very encouraged by what you saw. And I thought Lacey was very impressive.
Mm-hmm. Any other standouts? We haven't talked much Georgia. Again, Marshall was not much of an opponent. They're not going to get much of one this week either. But Gunner, what was your thoughts on Gunner? Because during the show last time, I said I thought he looked a little underwhelming, but and Georgia fans took exception to that. Again, I think that is more the opponent. I don't know. I just don't think Marshall is like borderline, not even Division I at this point in time. Just given, if you know the history of that, the recent history of that program. I'm not saying he can't get it done because heck, yeah, you got 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. It's a good day, but he still looks like a work in progress to me. But what do you think?
I think that's fair. I'll take 14-24, 190, 2 touchdowns and 2 touchdowns on the ground against Marshall. I look at this as a building block kind of process here. You get Marshall, you get Austin Peay. It feels like Georgia still has more they can add to the arsenal going forward. So I think we're not seeing the full Georgia offense. And I think one thing that I kind of picked up on during the game, and I'd have to dig up the stat on this, but it looked like to me that the air yards that, when you look at quarterbacks and like how far the ball is traveling, it looked like a pretty concerted effort to just get the ball in space and let the guys, catch and run. And we saw that with the long touchdown run by Zachariah Branch. So I think that's, if anything, what I took away is Zachariah Branch, a really promising start, which makes you think, okay, going forward, you've got this in your bag. You can get the ball to Kobe Young, with Thomas downfield more. You've got the good tight ends. I think this is more about just knocking off the rust. And so I think, to your point, there's room to grow here, but I don't think that we're seeing the full arsenal by Georgia. I think we'll see that going forward, like when they play Tennessee. So I'm not panicked at all about this team.
Hey, shout out Mr. Tag applied for. I just want to say you guys are awesome. I appreciate all the work you do. Go Dogs. But yeah, let me follow that up, Steven, because again, I don't think he's like awful. Hell, I always thought, there was all this hype with Brock Vandagriff. We know how that worked out. But I always said Gunner's going to be a hell of a lot better than old Brock, and we've already seen that to be the case. But for a guy that runs around a lot, I don't know. He's a little bit smaller. I'm hoping that he can survive. He every time I've seen him play, he gets like annihilated out there. Now he's tough as hell, so he probably will be fine. But can he beat Tennessee on the road? I certainly think he can. Certainly that Alabama game now looks much more manageable, but
Auburn looks tougher.
Auburn,
Yeah.
I know Texas, they looked awful on offense. They'll get it turned around. I think Florida is a team to watch. I don't know. I guess just my point being, like, if there's a shootout, can Gunner win it for you? I don't know. But they certainly, to your point, have all the tools around him that are going to help him. And that's what's kind of my, I hate to like sit here and look at the stats and be like, well, he didn't really do much on that 80-yard catch and run. He didn't do this. I don't want to just completely discredit the guy, but it just seemed like it was, seems like he's got elite talent around him and he's utilizing it. And that's what he should do. But I don't know, watching him, if this is a guy today, if Georgia fans are being honest, if he can win you a national championship. But to your point, he doesn't have to be. It's a work in progress, and he can get there. I think that's kind of where I'm at with him. I'm not sold on him being a national champion, if that makes sense.
I think he can be, because I trust the Georgia parts around him. Like, I think Georgia's offensive line rushing attack will be better than 15th in the SEC. They've got good receivers, and I trust Kirby Smart to figure out the defense. I mean, it's going to be one of the better groups in the country. The other thing, Mike, is I think one takeaway I would have from this weekend is, I mean, LSU was really impressive. I think that every team in the SEC is going to lose at least once, probably a lot of them twice. It's a pretty deep year at the top in the conference. But also in a year where it feels very volatile, it also would not surprise me if the safest thing on the board is Georgia emerges as the favorite to win the national title. Just simply because you trust Kirby Smart, defense is going to be fine. You give Stockton, I mean, Alabama looked pretty good on paper coming into the season and thought maybe that was going to be a test. I mean, if he plays well against Tennessee, they get Alabama at home. I mean, it could be 4-0 and Stockton could be really integrated with this offense and we feel a lot better. So I buy Georgia as a team and Stockton kind of as a part of the engine, as opposed to somebody who's like trying to drive the whole car, if that makes sense.
Right. And then, with Sark being able to win a big game and DeBoer blowing out, it's a country mile between Kirby and every other SEC coach when it comes to who's the best. So, hey, shout out Thorhog. He just became a member, Stephen. Welcome to
the family.
So any takeaways? I know it's a less than opponent in Bama A&M, but really blew the doors off of them after a slow start defensively. Alabama A&M scored on the first possession, then they didn't score again. But how about Taylor Green, man? Again, I know the comp's not great, but 6 touchdowns. I don't care who you're playing. That is impressive. They looked as sharp as possible on offense, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so too. I think it goes to kind of the theory we were talking about this offseason of year 2, Bobby Petrino offense, Taylor Green equals potentially big things in the passing game. And certainly the opponent noted Alabama A&M is pretty bad. But I think the takeaway that I would have is the receivers. This offense, the receivers look like from the first game of the year, they're on the same page. The passing game was firing on all cylinders. I mean, Omega Blake stood out. Raylan Sharp had some nice plays. Cam Shanks also caught 3 passes. The transfers that they went out and got to solidify this group were as advertised. So I think that's a good start. And the second thing was defensively, I was a little worried about the first drive of the game. And I thought, we got some problems here. And then they kind of shut things down after. That could, of course, be the script. Alabama A&M had all off season to throw something at Arkansas. I still have questions about this group. But I think as far as like what gives you a chance to win every week, it's Taylor Green. Also, Notre Dame looked pretty vulnerable. Notre Dame comes to Fayetteville this year. Does that game look more winnable for Arkansas? Probably.
It does. And, also who looks more like a loss, perhaps, Mississippi State. Their opponents, I mean, we were used to them being a laughing stock. They get out to a fast start, beat Southern Miss. Some were doubting that. Some were, how dare they, Stephen, doubt Hail Steak over here. But State's getting it done. big win on the road. One of the few SEC teams on the road that went out on the road and got a win week 1. So we got to give them their due. What was your thoughts on Mississippi State getting a much needed good start to 2025?
Absolutely. I think it's strange to say this, and Mississippi State, given where they are coming into the season, I think this is a pretty significant victory. I mean, trying to get to a bowl game, taking care of business, a 17-point victory on the road against a pretty good G5 opponent. I think this win's going to age well for Mississippi State. And I think for all the grief I've given Coleman Hutzler, holding a Southern Miss offense with a ton of new pieces, you weren't sure exactly what you were going to expect. 301 total yards. That's a good start for this defense. Jere Bledsoe, Will Whitson, like those transfers showed out on Saturday. So love what we saw on offense too. Shapen, Bothwell showed out. So a good win and a great way for Mississippi State to start the season after everything that we saw last year.
And then last one that I wanted to hit on, feel free to interject any other, Stephen, but I was hopeful they'd get a win, and they got it, but it wasn't pretty. 24-16, Kentucky beats Toledo. And, buddy, man, they can run the football, and that's what they got to be, but they can't throw the football, which is slightly concerning with some of the opponents they got coming up here. I don't know how well you're going to be able to run on Ole Miss and Carolina and Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, but we'll get there when we get there. Stephen, what was your thoughts on Mark Stoops' motivated win here?
I think that this win ought to provide some motivation to be better going forward. I mean, it was ugly, but hey, a win is a win, right? I mean, after come into the season with question marks, Mark Stoops feeling some pressure to get a win against a good G5 team. Pretty solid way to start the season. I think the strengths of this team are exactly what we talked about in the offseason. Dowdell, McGowan, whenever Jamarian Wilcox can play for Kentucky, the backfield is good. And I think they can do enough on the offensive line to clear some holes for these guys. I'm just very skeptical the passing game is going to get a lot better from here. And that's a real problem going forward when you look at that schedule, because Auburn looks tougher. Louisville looked pretty good too. Vanderbilt looks good. There's not a lot of guaranteed wins on the schedule, so I still need to see major progress from Calzada for this team to threaten for a bowl game.
Right. Well, you know who is making progress, Stephen? This show, because we landed SeatGeek. Come on, SeatGeek, new sponsor to the show. Hey, obviously you're here. You love SEC football. Maybe you got to get some tickets, but you haven't acquired them yet, Stephen. You can go over to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your phone and use the promo code SEC10 to get 10% off any order at SeatGeek. And it doesn't even have to be sports. They've got you covered with music and all the live performances. I think they even have theater on there. I know Steven's a big theater nerd. So go over to SeatGeek and don't forget that promo code SEC10. Helps the show, and it'll help you really because you're saving some money. If you need to get some tickets and you haven't got them yet, you might as well save you 10%. Won't cost you a thing. You know what?
Mike, we could really save the cousins some money between SeatGeek. I mean, think about all the showdowns coming up in the SEC. Oklahoma, Michigan this week, LSU, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. So you can take your winnings from all the good bets we'll give you and put them towards SeatGeek and get some tickets to the biggest games in the country coming up.
Absolutely. And two teams that their tickets might be on sale here soon because they're on Steven's panic meter after week 1. Who are you most panicked about in the SEC after the first week?
Mike, I think it has to be Alabama. And my panic meter, you can tell me if I'm wrong, it's at 10.
Oh,
if it could go higher, it would. I'm concerned about where this is going. And I think about proof of concept a lot when it comes to coaching because DeBoer had so much positive momentum when he took over at Alabama. He took Washington to the national championship game. He had a roster that was loaded with talent. You could kind of brush off the first year and say, it was a transition year, a lot of new schemes. Maybe they weren't acclimated to the staff. Everybody's back though. Roster's loaded, continuity, and they went out and laid an egg. at Florida State, a Florida State team that was a double-digit underdog with massive questions coming into the season. And it's a trend. I mean, we see this on double-digit favorites on the road. Alabama, it's been a long time since Alabama has really struggled with motivation like this in spots. I would venture to say like what is it, like Alabama, Texas A&M, the one time that Nick Saban like lost when they were a double-digit favorite. It's hard to live up to that standard every week, but I think a lot of things that you're seeing, from both sides of the ball are really concerning for Alabama going forward. It's not going to get any easier. I mean, Georgia coming up, got Tennessee. I mean, South Carolina looks pretty good to me. Coming up in October, they got to go to Auburn. I mean, 7-5, 8-4. I don't think that's out of the question, is it?
No, not at all. And I've got a short clip here from his Monday press conference, Kalen DeBoer, that is. Hopefully the audio is good. I didn't really check it. As you were going, I was like, yeah, I got to play this. But one of the reporters asked him, hey, you said you were real fired up about all the preparation you guys were doing for Florida State. And DeBoer's like, you just got to check this out. This is hilarious, I thought.
You mentioned the great week before the game. Just how much do you self-scout the preparation before games? And are there times as a coach where maybe you notice during the week that things might not be going the way that you want them to?
You said, what do you mean, great week?
A great week. You said a great week of preparation.
For this week, you're saying, or are you referring to last
going
week?
Going up to Florida State before that game.
I said that?
You said that, yeah, before.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, all right.
I said we had a good week. I mean, the guy's melting down here, live in Tuscaloosa. We knew he was no Nick Saban, but buddy, I don't. This is not going to fly here, is it?
It's not, and I hope, like, I'm not trying to be a like hot take artist by putting Alabama at 10 on the panic meter, but I think when I see Alabama now, it's like nobody is scared of this team, right? I mean, like, Florida State just whipped them. I mean, a Florida State with a transfer quarterback that's been at two other schools, Gus Malzahn, who's bounced around as, didn't work out as head coach at UCF, and they have all these transfer offensive linemen. I mean, they pushed him around. I mean, does Tim Keenan mean that much to the rush defense? So, I mean, I just, it's one thing to lose. It's another thing to how you lose in the process of that. And I think just given what we've seen, I think there are a lot of concerning trends for this Alabama team.
I mean, could you see a scenario? Because this is kind of where I'm at. And again, I don't think Ty Simpson's the problem, because I thought he wasn't great, but I don't think he was awful either. I think it was more about the defense, and the receivers didn't help him. I didn't think either. But his card that he has is Keelan Russell, the 5-star freshman, kind of like Billy Napier did with DJ Lagway last year, where you insert him, you get on a winning streak, and you can kind of turn the narrative. I mean, I hate it for Ty, but that may be the last thing that could save old DeBoer.
I agree. I think that's where this is headed. I don't think Simpson was bad. I think he's got to play better. I think and this also gets at something else. Alabama's offensive line has massively underachieved the last two seasons. I mean, Caden Proctor is supremely talented, and Florida State's rebuilt defensive line had their way with that front. So I think that kind of starts like everything for me is like they got to be better up front. And I think ultimately, if this offense continues to struggle or you lose games, the way to inject some new enthusiasm has got to be Keelan Russell taking over. I think that's where it's headed.
And there's a lot of buzz, Stephen. I don't know how much of this that you have heard, that Kalen DeBoer is just so confident in his scheme and his coaches that discipline, that toughness is not something that he is overly concerned with, which that is quite literally the opposite of Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. And it doesn't mean that like that can't work, but just I think we're seeing in real time what a mistake it is to try to replace toughness and physicality with a more X's and O's type guy. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's always tough to judge like effort from afar, But when you have former players like calling out the team, I think that that says a lot about where things are. It is very difficult to maintain the standard of Nick Saban, like competing for national championships and winning the SEC on an annual basis. But given the roster talent, you can't go 8-4 with this. You can't 2 years in a row, 4 losses. And it's not just that. It could be one thing, like if you were losing to like number 1, number 5, number 7, like you can understand that. But losing to Vanderbilt on the road, losing to a one-dimensional Oklahoma offense, losing to Florida State, like the bad signs are starting to accumulate here. And it might just be a case, DeBoer just might be a bad fit at Alabama. He could get let go and he could go thrive somewhere else. Does John Summerall like Tuscaloosa? I don't know, but I think I might be willing to find out if this keeps trending in this direction if I'm Alabama.
Yep. All right. How about I know you had one other team that you're eyeing for the panic meter.
That is Texas. And I am setting the panic meter at 2. Okay. I am not panicked at all about the loss to Ohio State. This was a game on the road in one of the toughest stadiums in college football. Ohio State's defense is one of the best in the country. Texas can only get better from here. So while it wasn't great, I think Texas is going to be a lot better by December. And I think this is probably the bottom for this offense. There's a lot of room to improve. And when get a little bit more reps, the schedule lightens up, not on the road, I think they'll be okay.
Well, of course you'd say that, Stephen, who loves Arch Manning and has got him as a Heisman winner. But what about overall? Yeah, the talent, the schedule, they're going to be fine. But any concern, any panic, if you will, that old Arch is not who you and the rest of you have built him up to be. And I'm not saying he's awful. I mean, people in the comments saying he's trash. That's silliness. He did kind of play very pedestrian, I thought. But, what if he is, I don't know, insert Garrett Nussmeier last year, or, I don't even know if that's the floor, but of that caliber where like he'll have a great game, then maybe in a spot he's got a bad game. Is that totally unrealistic?
I think what concerned me the most was some of the footwork and sort of the throws, like the inaccuracy at times. I think it was the first throw of the game where the guy's like running wide open on the side of the field, like just set and throw. A third down with Ryan Wingo coming open with the game on the line, set and throw it. It's easy stuff. And so that worries me more than anything, like the simple stuff. I think that's the kind of stuff I expected would be he'd be improved upon from last year. I want to read you some stats real quick here. 8 of 20 for 80 yards. That is Jaden Daniels in his first road start for LSU in the SEC when he played Auburn. Lenore Sellers was 10 of 23 for 114 yards against Old Dominion last year. John Mateer, 9 of 19 for 115 yards against a bad Texas Tech defense last year when he played for Washington State. Good quarterbacks can have bad games. Not many quarterbacks may have played the best defense on the road first week of the season in his first career road start in college. I think there's a little bit of context for Arch Manning. Now, saying all that, like I said, I thought he would do the simple things better. And in a game where the defenses would dominate, we wouldn't be talking about like inaccuracy and things like that. So he has to play better. Is there a chance he doesn't live up to the number 1 quarterback this year? Absolutely. I would not be surprised if that just simply ends up being Nussmeier or Sellers at this point.
Yeah. I should have known you would have come with some propaganda. Just opposite of Uncle Dogman. Dogman just became a member. Dogman, Uncle Dogman, welcome to
the family.
Yeah, we appreciate you. And also, we got a donation here from Chase. Appreciate you, Chase. Chase Billum. Hey, cousins. I know Cousin Mike's disdain for old Hugh, but including him, which coach surprised with how good and prepared the team look? I think that's one. I think it's Hugh Freeze, and I think it's Brian Kelly. Those would be my top 2 And maybe I should have been surprised by old Brian Kelly, but I'm kind of used to him shitting the bed myself. But no, LSU with a bunch of transfers looked very locked in. And Hugh Freeze, very surprised. He would top my list. How about who would top your list there, Stephen?
Yeah, I think it would be Hugh Freeze and Brian Kelly. The Auburn Baylor game was one of the biggest mysteries in week 1, just because we didn't really know what to expect out of Auburn. Baylor was, like I said, one of the preseason favorites, but in the Big 12, but Auburn to go on the road and kind of smack Baylor around in the trenches and all these questions about how the offenses look. They're trying to build up Jackson Arnold's confidence. I thought that was a very good start and impressed with the job that Hugh Freeze did there. And I think the other thing would be Brian Kelly and LSU, just the bad fortune they've had in season openers to turn it around and to go on the road and beat Clemson is a good sign for where this team could go this season. Also, Mike, I wouldn't put in the same category, but I think we're like 50 minutes in the show and we did not mention Missouri yet. And it felt like 3 years ago because they played on Thursday night. But man, that Missouri roster looks deep, and I was very impressed with Bo Prabula in his first start for Missouri.
Oh yeah, no, he looked like $1 million. He looked a heck of a lot better than I knew him to be. Again, he was a complete mystery, but he's got to protect himself. That would be my only caveat there. We got a huge game. You don't protect yourself against Kansas, but maybe some of these others, because we need him in the lineup. I think they're clearly going to be a different team if he's not out there. But yeah, maybe that's an interesting question too. The biggest surprise at quarterback in a positive probably would be Bo. I know the competition wasn't great. Jackson Arnold looked good. Gunner, again, I didn't 100% buy into Gunner, but is it, if you had to name a quarterback that was the biggest surprisingly looked good, who would that be? Maybe Joey?
I think you have to say Prabula or Aguilar here.
Mm-hmm.
Just given the circumstances, Prabula being largely unknown outside of being a runner, and for Aguilar the step up in competition, like going from G5 to SEC and playing a Syracuse team that was good last year. I think those were the two biggest surprises in a good way at quarterback.
And then cousin Rick, he says, don't forget old Marcel, who we did hit on before he jumped on, but yeah, he looked pretty sharp after settling in there early on. 4 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. I don't think many people had that for Marcel Reed in the opener.
No, I think that's a good point too. I think Reed is definitely in that conversation. I love building him some confidence this week and next week before you get to Notre Dame was really important. Just because of what you have up front, what you probably have on defense. But year 2 under Colin Klein with these weapons and Marcel Reed, wanted to see them kind of air it out and build on what they kind of plan to do this season. I think that's a good start for Marcel Reed.
But where they maybe didn't do so well, Stephen, did they register at all in your panic? Texas A&M's inability to rush the football, and we could kind of group Oklahoma in there as well. Would those rate at all on your panic meter? Are they giving you any panic?
Maybe a little bit. Like for A&M, I would probably almost go like a 1 or a 2 on the panic meter, just because offensive line is one of the best in the country. The running backs are deep. It felt like a concerted effort. Like, we got to get Marcel Reed on track. I think we'll see the real A&M offense once we get to Notre Dame. Maybe we do this Saturday against Utah State. Maybe they try to get the run game going against Utah State. I think for Oklahoma, it registers probably a little bit higher, maybe like 4. I would knock that grade a little bit because of the injuries. Like, Jaden Knott's been banged up in the fall. You've had Simmons and Fasusi out. You've had some other guys out. Let's see what happens against Michigan this week. I think for South Carolina, I would go a little bit higher, maybe like a 5. Now, I liked Attaway and Faison both kind of had some nice runs in that game at times. I would like to see this offensive line of run game be a little bit more consistent. And it feels like the offensive line has kind of been a question for South Carolina at times under Shane Beamer. multiple times. So would like to see South Carolina's offensive line play better. Granted, they had 3 new starters. That group can get better from here.
Hey, shout out cousin Carl Judkins. Stephen, we may have found a new nickname for Bo Prabula next time he screws up. Shout out Carl Judkins. It's Aguilar by a mile. Bo Peep at Zoo looked great against Rhode Island School for the Blind. So, yeah, that might be the leader for comment of the night. Appreciate you, Carl, cousin Carl. And he's also gifted a membership, Stephen, to Silky Johnston. Silky, welcome to
the family.
Yeah, courtesy of cousin Carl. We appreciate you, buddy, man. Bo Peep. And he gave us a nickname. That's great.
Man, I feel like Drinkowitz is given, Talon Green, and he stirred it up. So maybe it's good for some of the fan bases to give Missouri back a little bit of their own medicine, maybe.
Yeah, let's throw it right back at them. But hey, so speaking of Mizzou, it's that time of year, Stephen, where we get to throw up these graphics. How about it? Week 2 previews. And for Bo Peep, let's just lead, because I know there's a few games we got our eyes on, but this is the one that really matters to both these fan bases so passionately. Kansas, little Kansas at Missouri, Stephen. And Missouri is favored in the football game by 6.5 last I checked it. But what's your thoughts on this one? Kansas 2-0. They also played School of the Blind last week. I think it was called Wagner. But they did look decent against, I believe it was Fresno State. So I think this is a quality opponent coming in here to Columbia. What's your read on it?
I agree. I can't wait for this game. The border war back, the fan bases arguing with each other. I can't wait to see what happens this Saturday. I think the thing to take away from Kansas is Jalen Daniels at quarterback looks like the Jalen Daniels that was one of the best quarterbacks in college football, I guess back in like 2022, I guess it was. I mean, he's been hurt and he wasn't great last year, but they've gotten back to a lot of things that they do well on offense, which is being creative, finding ways to scheme guys open. Daniels is a dual threat, very dynamic. So I think he will be a good matchup for this Missouri defense. And we saw some guys like Damon Wilson, Josiah Trotter, like those newcomers popped for Missouri last week and against Central Arkansas. So interested to see what Jalen Daniels has against this Missouri defense. And then flip it around. Kansas has a major issue at linebacker. They have a couple guys who are banged up here. So I think if you're Prabula and you're looking at Ahmad Hardy, this offensive line for Missouri is going to have to gel some, but there could be some opportunities against this Kansas defense to pick up where they left off against Central Arkansas.
Mm-hmm. And how important will it be for Missouri with these pass rushers that we heard so much about in the offseason? How important will it be that they get after old Jalen Daniels in this matchup that very well could decide it, the pressure we get on him?
Yeah, that's a great question because, do you want to pressure him like crazy and have him escape the pocket and create plays? Or maybe do you want to kind of keep him in the lanes and force him to beat you from the pocket? So I think either way, whether it's you want to get after him, create some havoc, or whether you just want to play rush lanes and contain him so that he can't get outside. Guys like Damon Wilson, Darius Smith, we saw them in the opener, flash potential. They're going to be even a greater force on Saturday, potentially. This Kansas offensive line has been mixing and matching a little bit this season so far. So I'm eager to see how they hold up. Bryce Foster, the former Texas A&M center, is a standout center for Kansas. He anchors that group.
And, there is one thing that Missouri fans are going to be well aware, but I don't know if the rest are, that could be important for this game, Stephen, is Missouri's kicker's out. So he got injured in the opener, and, obviously that could factor in if field goals need to be kicked, but also I think decision-making with Coach Drinkowitz of, field position and, if it's a 4th and short from the 35, I mean, I would assume we're almost like forced to go now, whereas before you would kick the field goal. You know what I mean? With a retooled offensive line, with a new quarterback, albeit a quarterback that looked good in his debut, but this is a significantly different competition. You're going to have to trust Bo to make the right reads and the right decisions. Being down a kicker is always kind of a big deal, but perhaps I think this week it could be huge for Missouri.
Especially with how big of a weapon he could be with the range that he was giving Missouri, and potentially a close game. I think Kansas is, if the offense for Kansas clicks, they've got a chance to keep this game close. Also, I think if you're Missouri, you don't want your kicker to get hurt, but at least going into this game what you have in your new starter or what you have to do to win. Like, if you know that your kicker's not going to be able to hit from 40 and out, once you get to that side of the field, you've got 4 downs to get it. So at least it changes your play calling, or at least gives you some options. I love the big plays that we saw against Central Arkansas that felt like it was missing at times from Missouri last season. So off to a good start, but need to see it against Kansas and need to see it against the SEC to kind of get a full idea of where this is going.
Oh, and good news, Stephen. They're saying in the comments the backup, he's got range from 50, 55. So they just got an NFL All-Pro in the back. So we're fine. I shouldn't even have brought it up. Good luck with that. All right, good luck with that. All right, speaking of good luck, Stephen, how about College Game Day? Now this is also a massive game with Michigan coming to Norman, Oklahoma. We're going to find out real quick, Stephen, how legit the Sooners are on offense with, again, I don't have a ton of respect for Michigan, but I do know they got a lot of good players, and they whooped Alabama's ass for whatever that's worth in the bowl game. So suddenly that's not that impressive either if freaking Florida State could do it. But again, this is not a game that could be overlooked. I think this is likely going to come down to the wire. It'll come down to who's making the decisions here in the red zone. Oklahoma favored by 5.5 points. What's your read on this matchup?
Mike, I think we're in for a lower scoring game here. Michigan, the strengths of this team, running the ball and defense. They have some turnover on defense, but they look pretty good on Saturday. Granted, it was New Mexico, so need to see it against tougher competition. But one of the best defenses potentially in the country. Their strength on offense is the 1-2 punch. It's Marshall and Justice Haynes, the law and order backfield, as Michigan fans like to call it. So they're going to run the ball. They're going to play good defense. The question for Michigan is Bryce Underwood ready to go on the road in this hostile environment and deliver against a good Oklahoma defense? Underwood played well against New Mexico. He made some great throws. This is a much tougher assignment. New Mexico was one of the worst defenses in the country last year. Totally different animal on the road against Oklahoma.
Ballpark, how many points do you think it's going to take to win this football game? Because I would imagine this is, I'm sure it's been bet down, but I'm sure whenever this opened, this was probably one of the most bet unders on the board with Michigan's defense, with Oklahoma's defense going up against either a freshman quarterback or a new quarterback. I'd have to imagine this was a heavy popular under. How many points do you think wins it for either team?
I think the over under is like 46 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're Oklahoma, if you can get to 24, you probably feel good about where you are. Does that seem fair?
No, without a doubt. But I was just wondering if even less, like 20, it might be able to get it done. But yeah, like Headless says 17-9. I mean, heck,
yeah.
Some people find that boring. I find it entertaining because every possession is so valuable. But it very well could be a game of that nature.
Yeah, it really could. And it's almost like, it sounds super simple, but it's like these two teams are going to be great on defense. It's going to come down to whichever quarterback, whichever OC can generate enough offense. Like, can you manufacture maybe a big play? Because yards could be hard to come by in this game. And so, like, is it Mateer? hitting Burks downfield for a big play? Is it a Mateer rush that breaks a couple tackles and goes for a long gain? One concern that Michigan has, and it's hard to read too much into this because they played New Mexico, receiver is a big question for this team. Like, if you take away Donovan McCulley, one of their better receivers, do they have a 2, 3, and a 4 that can maybe make some plays? This is a good spot for Michigan to find out. So I expect this game to be on the lower side. If you want a lower scoring side, if you're an Oklahoma fan and you want to feel optimistic, your defense should be matches up well against Michigan, and you have the more established quarterback going into this game.
And how paramount do you think this is for the conference? Just, I don't think you could be losing too many of these games, particularly at home, to a team that Michigan, again, I know they won a couple years ago. Of course, we all know they cheated. But I don't know. I think it's massive for the SEC, and quite frankly, it's massive for the Sooners, given their upcoming. I mean, I get it. As I'm looking at, I can't believe it. I almost fell over when I read this. Michigan's 14, which is crazy. But I would imagine they got, just looking at their schedule, like 5 tougher games than Michigan, who I think is kind of fraudulent.
I think respectability is something on the line for Oklahoma. Brent Venables is on the hot seat. 2 losing seasons in 3 years. If you beat Michigan and you look good doing so, you kind of change the narrative. Also, I think just in terms of playoff positioning, Michigan could be sitting there at 10-2, trying to get in as an at-large team. If Oklahoma beats them, it's more likely they probably finish 9-3. So if just thinking conference wide, I mean, the SEC had a great win with LSU, fell short with Texas, Alabama stumbled. Get some respectability back though if Oklahoma takes care of business and beats Michigan, a team that a lot of people are high on this preseason.
How about the first conference game of the season, Stephen? Ole Miss at Kentucky, a little revenge game perhaps. Ole Miss favored by 10.5 points. The footballs all favor the Rebels, which shouldn't be surprised. But guess what, Stephen? They favored them all last year too, and we all know what happened. So what's your thoughts on this?
Mike, that's exactly where I was going with this one, which is this is set up almost like last year. Kentucky's an underdog. All the footballs on the stats favor Ole Miss. Kentucky's passing game looked awful on Saturday against Toledo. Are they putting us to sleep and they're going to wake up a little bit this Saturday against Ole Miss? When you look at the series too, I think the last 4 games between these two teams were decided by 1 score. So it shouldn't be a total surprise that this one's a little bit closer than 10 points. I think though, in the big picture, like if you're Kentucky, if Ole Miss stops the run, you've just got to get more out of the passing game. And I doubt they can do that. I also think if I'm Ole Miss, this is a good test for the offensive line. We talked about Kawan Lacey and Logan Diggs. They were impressive in week 1, but Ole Miss had some offensive line issues last year, even in the preseason, even against a kind of rebuilt Kentucky defense. This will give us a much better idea of where this Ole Miss offensive line is.
And any thoughts on Austin Simmons? Again, we saw him against Georgia, look like $1 million for a drive, looked solid in his debut, but again, that was a home game. A lot of these quarterbacks, they think they're ready, and then they have to go play in this conference on the road. Could that be an edge to where maybe he's not quite ready for the road environment of Lexington and all the big blue wall they're going to throw at him, Stephen?
Should we look at week 1 as maybe like a guiding factor here? I mean, Arch struggled at Ohio State. I know it's a lot different Ohio State and Kentucky in terms of like home field advantage, but I mean,
a little, just slightly different.
Just a little. But I do think, it's hard to go on the road and being the first start conference game. There's a lot of pressure. I would be surprised if he matches the stat line that he put up against Georgia State.
Hey, shout out Rick, cousin Rick. He gave us $20. Stephen, let's play his jingle.
It's Texas A&M's biggest fan, Cousin Rick. Gig 'em, Aggies.
Thank you, Rick. He says, my son-in-law worked game day yesterday. Wow, he's way more successful than us, Stephen. North Carolina game tonight. My daughter owns an occupational therapy clinic for handicapped kids. My heart is so proud. Go, Aggies. Thank you, Cousin Rick. You should be proud. Sounds like you got one heck of a family. Couldn't be happier for you.
Shout out to Cousin Rick, yeah.
I'd like to be more like Cousin Rick when I grow up. I don't know about you, Stephen.
I think so. That's pretty impressive, man. So it's like he's got a great family. His Aggies are off to a 1-0 start. So life is good right now.
No doubt. You know who else is good for, Stephen? It's good for Florida. Who's playing South Florida? How about this, Stephen? All of a sudden, I thought this would be a cream puff type game, and it still could because I'm very high on Florida. But South Florida, they whooped old Boise, who was ranked last week. Florida favored by 17.5 points. How interesting is this game in your mind, Stephen?
Very interesting. Got a lot more interesting after Thursday night. We saw two things that South Florida didn't have last year. Number one, Byron Brown is back at quarterback. He is a dynamic playmaker. Like, he fits Alex Golesh's offense. Like, his throwing motion could be a little weird sometimes, but he's a good runner and he gets that high-powered offense going. Also, South Florida's defense held Boise to 4.4 yards per play. They totally shut down Boise State. This is a much improved defense on paper. Still like a ways for South Florida to close that gap to South Florida to Florida, but Alex Golesh and this team, they can find ways to manufacture points. They've got a better defense this year. I am eager to see how this matches up because they took care of business against Boise. They get Florida. They get Miami. There's a chance here for this team to play spoiler against the Gators.
I have a feeling, Stephen, that this could be one of those where, like, yeah, South Florida looks good, but then all that did is it's gonna catch the attention of them Gators, and they're gonna be on notice. Heck, they're already on notice, getting prepped. You know, maybe let's say they had got smoked by Boise, maybe they could have snuck into the swamp and been a little bit more competitive. I think it's going to be one of those where South Florida's got Florida's full attention now, and that's really going to pay off for them Gators.
I think that is a good point. I think had South Florida lost to Boise State, I think maybe your Florida can start looking ahead to LSU next week. But now you go, oh, South Florida just beat Boise, and they kind of took care of business in the final scoreboard there with how one-sided it ended up being. So I think there's like Florida's not going to be sleeping on South Florida. And in fact, I do wonder if this game may look a lot like the South Florida Alabama game was last year, where it was kind of close early. Alabama pulled away late. Like that might happen here. I don't think South Florida's got the ingredients right now to pull off the upset, but they are very interesting in this spot.
Mm-hmm. Another game, Stephen, that I find very interesting. How about Vanderbilt at Virginia Tech? Tech's auditioning for the SEC, apparently, with all these conference games here, but they failed against South Carolina. This is a huge game for Vanderbilt for a lot of reasons, but if Vanderbilt can win it, beat Virginia Tech for 2 years in a row, they set themselves up really well for a return to a bowl trip. I don't want to say they can't do it with a loss, but it's going to be tough. What's your thoughts? Vanderbilt looked razor sharp against lesser competition in the opener. Suddenly, you know, I came away impressed with Vanderbilt and thinking that Virginia Tech looks beatable.
Yeah, I did too. I came away pretty impressed with Vanderbilt. You know, Charleston Southern is not very good, but I think there's something to be said about taking care of business. Pavia was sharp. We saw some new weapons at receiver emerge. You know, Trey Richardson, the small college transfer, he looked good. Also, I think the defense looks deeper on paper than it or looks like on paper and the eye test that we saw on Saturday. So it's a big spot for Vanderbilt because when you look at that schedule, suddenly the Alabama game looks a lot more winnable for Vanderbilt than it did in the preseason, which is kind of mind-boggling. But you look ahead, like South Carolina coming up on September 13th. Also, tough spot. Lane Stadium is a difficult place to play. Virginia Tech is going to have its hands full, though, because they just played yesterday. They have a short turnaround time to get ready for this game. And Vanderbilt is a hard team to prepare for with the option and the style that they play. So I think Virginia Tech can do some things with Kyron Drones at quarterback and their passing game, but I also think there might be some intangible things here that favor Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm. And I should have mentioned, I mean, I don't know that he really cares, but Virginia Tech's a 1.5 point favorite. And I feel like Diego Pavia is going to learn about that and be kind of extra ticked off if possible. I don't know if that's humanly possible. How about, who's really going to be ticked off if they lose, Stephen? And that's Arizona State. Come on, playing at Mississippi State. This could be a game that Jeff Lebby and company use to turn around the program and show that there is evidence of something special being built in Starkville. What's your read on this one? Both these teams won. Arizona State is a 6.5 point favorite after each team won in week one. Any shot that Mississippi State pulls off the upset here?
Absolutely. I'm actually a little surprised it's only 6.5 on the spread. I thought Arizona State would be a little bit closer to maybe double digits as a favorite here. Kind of short kind of outlook on Arizona State. Like 16 returning starters, I think maybe the most complete team in the Big 12 this preseason outside of maybe Utah. Sam Leavitt is back at quarterback. They got Jordan Tyson at receiver. They are very good on both sides of the ball. They do not have Cam Scatterby, though, and that is a question of how much balance they will have on offense. It's probably by committee at running back this year. So they lost one of their kind of emotional leaders and also one of their most productive offensive players. I think looking ahead about this, I don't want to say statement type of victory that feels kind of like early, but if Mississippi State wins this game and to go 2-0, to win on the road against Southern Miss, and if they can knock off Arizona State, all of a sudden you can start thinking maybe you got a shot to get to a bowl game. And if nothing else, there ought to be some positive signs. Like if the defense plays well, it's 2 weeks of good play. It's an upset win potentially. So I think there's a lot on the line here for Mississippi State. Like if they can get a victory, you start to kind of change the narrative a little bit on where this team is in 2025.
Mm-hmm. And we don't have to change the narrative on Cousin Rick. Stephen, he's back. He's gifted another $50. We don't deserve you, Rick.
It's Texas A&M's biggest fan, Cousin Rick. Gig 'em, Aggies.
Shout out, Cousin Rick. I thought this weekend would tell us a lot. The top three played really good competition. The rest of us played cupcakes. Not sure what we learned, except I love Bayou quarterback compared to the rest. Time will tell still. Beat the hell out of Notre Dame. Can't wait. So let's preview week 2 for A&M, Stephen, playing Utah State. Anything you'll be looking for here? Because, again, Rick loves Marcel Reed as he should, but what I got my eye on, I need to see the Aggies run the football against this lesser competition. What about you?
Mike, I think for Cousin Rick, I think kind of like a big picture overview of Utah State, kind of a fringe bowl team in the Mountain West. They missed a bowl game last year, but they hired Bronco Mendenhall. He's been around a while. He's been at Virginia. He's been at BYU. He's a great coach, and he can definitely take nothing and make it into something. So he is very good at sort of like X's and O's and motivation. I think there is a little danger that they can make things interesting here. If you've watched Utah play football, you may remember the name Bryson Barnes. He's a quarterback. He's the pig farmer. He's the starting quarterback at Utah State now. So probably like a fringe bowl team, but Mike, to your point, like this is a game Texas A&M should take care of business unless they're peeking ahead to what's in week 3 in Notre Dame, a game that I think Texas A&M's odds of winning probably improved after watching Notre Dame on Sunday night. But I want to see Marcel Reed do exactly what we saw in week 1, build that confidence, and also see a little bit more, to your point, out of the run game. Utah State's offense is probably a little bit different in terms of how they're going to run it. Barnes is a good runner. Miles Davis, their running back. I don't think they have as good of offensive personnel as UTSA does. So if they run the ball well, I'm going to be very worried going into Notre Dame. A&M should be able to win this game and win it more comfortably than they did against UTSA.
And not that it's going to hurt them, in this game, but the next one, particular Notre Dame. One thing that has kind of reared its ugly head in the opener for A&M. Again, you won big, you win by double digits, so little things like this kind of get overlooked. But a lot of missed tackles. I think the number was 12 to 15 missed tackles they had against UTSA, and that is, of course, something that killed them late last year. Particularly, I'm thinking of the South Carolina game. They've got to get that cleaned up in time for Notre Dame, because Notre Dame's a very tough, physical team. I know they lost to Miami, but that's a team. If you loaf like Bama, they will make you pay. So, any concern at all that there were so many missed tackles by the Aggies in the opener?
There is concern. I will also note, I think it's kind of like a sport-wide issue right now in week one. And I think it's rust probably. Also new pieces like Texas A&M had continuity essentially at coordinator with Elko and all the other guys there. A lot of other teams didn't. So you see new pieces and all that trying to fit. So new starters. I think there's probably something to early season rust. If we see it again this week, I will be concerned.
Mm-hmm. And then the rest of the slate, Stephen, it's mostly cupcakes. But how about this? This is an interesting game out of the state of Arkansas, with Arkansas State playing Arkansas in Little Rock. And again, Arkansas, they didn't get tested whatsoever really in the opening week. This should be a stiffer test, but Arkansas is still nearly a 24-point favorite. It's 23.5 as I just saw it. What will you be looking for from the Razorbacks in this one?
I think essentially take care of business. Don't let Arkansas State hang around and have a chance at the upset. I'm sure in terms of motivation, Arkansas State's probably insanely motivated. There's probably a lot of guys on this team that, it's kind of a cliche, but they wanted to go to Arkansas and they had to go to Arkansas State. They got a lot of transfers too. So defensively, there's a lot of new pieces for this Arkansas State team. They weren't very good on that side of the ball last season, so we'll have to see if this is a much stiffer test than Southeast Missouri State for Arkansas State. If you want to know, like, the players to know for Arkansas State, it's quarterback Jalen Rayner. He's one of the best in the Sun Belt, can hurt you through the air, hurt you through the ground. If he gets on a roll, they can move the ball. Butch Jones, of course, is their head coach. They've been a pretty consistent bowl team. So this is a solid Arkansas State team that Arkansas is meeting. If Arkansas plays like they did after the first drive against Alabama A&M, though, they will be fine.
Mm-hmm. And then Louisiana State is playing Louisiana Tech. Staying in state, I like to see that. Any concern here that there could be a little bit of a letdown after arguably the best win in the country to date?
I think there's maybe some potential here to kind of have a sleepy victory, because you get Florida coming up. You just played Clemson. I could see kind of a sluggish victory here. The problem for Louisiana Tech, if you want to make an upset case, I just don't think they have the personnel to go pull off the upset. If there was a better G5 team coming in, my radar would be up a little bit more. This is a Louisiana Tech team breaking in a lot of new faces on both sides of the ball. Quarterback making a second start after transferring in from JUCO. If you want to dig way deep into the old SEC friend bag, Tony Franklin is their offensive coordinator at Louisiana Tech. So I think LSU will take care of business here.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a deep cut right there. Speaking of deep cut, it would be a deep cut, Stephen, if Auburn lost to David Letterman's alma mater, Ball State. I mean, what if anything would be looking for here? Maybe Jackson Arnold maybe throwing in a little bit better, huh?
I think that's it. I mean, Ball State just got beat 31-0 by a very bad Purdue team. Ball State is one of the worst 5 teams in the country right now. Auburn should be able to air it out with Jackson Arnold. That's what I want to see. I want to see Jackson Arnold build some confidence as a passer this week.
Yeah. How about speaking of confidence as a passer, Stephen? Will we be getting that from Old Arch against San Jose State? I mean, we better, right?
We better, yes. Like Steven's panic meter might be up to a 10 next week if they struggle against San Jose State. San Jose State lost kind of surprisingly to Central Michigan in the first week of the year. I expect we will see a very angry and a very motivated Texas team here and to take care of business. If San Jose State is close in the fourth quarter, we got big problems.
And as Emily points out, ball isn't even a state. I don't know how they got that, but how about Alabama Monroe? I mean, even the great Nick Saban lost to this program once, at least once, I think just once. But panic meter, if this game's close, Alabama's a 37-point favorite.
Mike, if this game is close in the fourth quarter, Kalen DeBoer might just want to go and pack his bags because Louisiana Monroe is probably the 6th or 7th best team in their division in the Sun Belt West. They are very good at running the ball, though. That's a little bit problematic for Alabama's defense right now. Not so good as a passing team, though. So if they're running it and shortening the game, we got a problem. I think Alabama bounces back, though.
Is Terry Bowden still the coach?
It is Bryant Vincent, who was at UAB a couple years ago.
It was Terry Bowden not that long ago, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I don't know why we do that.
Speaking of like really old SEC friends, right?
Yeah, I was so surprised you didn't go there. All right, and then Steven's alma mater, Austin Peay. Are they going to do it, Steven? Are they going to pull the impossible and beat Georgia in Athens?
No chance, Mike. They're too busy celebrating in Clarksville after beating Derek Mason's ETSU Blue Raiders last week. This is another game for Georgia to kind of build some confidence. I expect we'll see maybe a little bit more out of the passing game in Gunner Stockton against Austin Peay.
And then two more that are staying in state, Steven. South Carolina State. I didn't even know South Carolina State was a team. What will you be looking for from the Cox here?
I think I'd like to see South Carolina work on the offensive line and the run game. I think we know Sellers and Nick Harbor can probably hit as many big plays as they wanted to here, but short turnaround time and looking at what's ahead with Vanderbilt, Missouri, your starting SEC play, I want to see South Carolina sort of do the basics, like run the ball, get the running backs involved a little bit more, work on some of those things before you get to the SEC play.
And then last one, also staying in state here, Stephen. Tennessee versus ETSU. Thoughts on the Vol second game?
I think Joey Aguilar is going to have another big performance for Tennessee. He's probably going to get one of the biggest ovations in Knoxville this Saturday. I don't think Tennessee should have much trouble here. Like on the panic meter, very low this week. You want to dig into the bag of old SEC friends, Jacoby Criswell, one of the quarterbacks likely to play for East Tennessee State. So the well-traveled Jacoby Criswell there for East Tennessee State.
All right, Stephen, I can't thank you enough for stopping by and dropping all this knowledge on us. Before you go, can you remind the cousins where they can follow you and where they can find your work?
Absolutely. You can check out all my work at athlonsports.com. You can follow me over on Twitter at AthlonSteven and Stephen L. CFB over on the Facebook and Instagram.
All right, Steven's got to run. He's got to catch Bill Belichick's debut, hopefully his girlfriend's debut as well. But that's going to do it for this episode. We'll be back tomorrow with Roush Hour, and then Shane will be back in the evening, so at least a double show for you guys on Tuesday. But that's all. We really, really, really appreciate all your support and all you viewing and hanging out over the weekend. We're just 1 week into the books. This is the best time of the year. Savor every moment of it. I know we are, but that's going to do it. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Hey, buddy, this beer's for you, Mike, and Cousin Shane. That SEC podcast loves the Pirate, and the Pirate loves that SEC podcast. Hail State.